Hey everybody, this is Can't Stop the Unk, and I'm here with lesson 4. So in this lesson, we're going to go over some of the things that we might have skipped over in the first 3 lessons, but they're really useful to know how to do in Java and in programming in general. So we won't be going over any specific programming concepts, but these things are really useful to know and they're really important. And there's no really good place to put this lesson, so I think the earlier it's done, the better it is. So let's just get started. So in lesson 2, we went over if statements, and I only showed you how to do greater than, less than conditionals, right? But there's obviously a lot of different type of conditionals you can think of, like what if you want to know something's equal to, or if they're not equal to, or what if you want to have like multiple conditions, like to combine them. So if you want to have this condition and you want to fulfill another condition, or what if you just want one or the other. So that's what we're going to cover. So in this example, I have 3 ints, right? num1, num2, and num3. So 2 of the nums are equal to 5, and one of them is equal to 7, right? So 2 of them are the same, one of them is different from the 2. So in our first one, if you want to check if 2 numbers are equal to each other, all you have to do is use the equals equals, right? You obviously can't use 1 equals in this condition. So make sure you're aware of this, because this might be a common bug in your program when you first start programming, that you might only have 1 equal sign to check for a conditional. But Java will complain and Eclipse will show you this error. You want to have 2 equals, because if you use 1 equals, it assumes that you're assigning values to it, like you did up here when it's int num equals 7, right? You're assigning a value, but that's not what you want to do. You want to compare values, so you use 2 equal signs. That's how you compare 2 numbers to each other, or 2 primitives to each other. And I stress the word primitive. This is how you check primitives only, right? So if you want to check strings, there's a different way to do it. So this works for booleans, ints, doubles, long floats, any of the primitives that I showed you in lesson 1. All these logical operators will work. Now, the only 2 operators that I'm going to show you that can work with strings or objects, which is something you don't know yet, but you will soon, is the AND operator and the OR operator. Those things can work with strings, but that's because they're not comparing the strings directly, right? They're just chaining conditions together. So those are the 2 things, logical operators, that you can use with strings or primitives, right? But for equals to or does not equals to, it will not work. All right, so for our second example, if you want to know how to use does not equal to, you want to compare if a number is different from another thing or primitive is different from another primitive, you use the exclamation mark equals. So exclamation mark always means not, right? That's how you should interpret it. The exclamation means not equals, which is the equal sign, right? So just be aware of that, and all you have to do is just like when you try to compare something, if something's equal, use equals equals, you just use exclamation equal for if you want to compare if something's not equal to. Now, if you want to chain multiple conditions together, you can use the OR operator, right? For example, you use 2 bars, vertical bars, that means OR, okay? So you can't use this. This will not work. You have to use 2 vertical bars to use the OR operator. So this statement checks that if one of the numbers, so num1 equals num2, or num1 equals num3. So only one of those 2 conditions have to work in order for this print line statement to be printed down here, right? So now I'm gonna run this program real quick to show you the first 3 if statements that we just went over. Okay, so you can see in our first if statement, we checked if num1 is equal to num2. Obviously they are, because we set them equal to 5, and it does print out this println statement that we made. And then we want to check if num1 is equal to num3. So 5 is obviously not equal to 7, so it prints the 2 nums are not the same. Now we have our chained condition. So obviously num1 does equal num2, because we only need one of the 2 conditions we only need to meet one of the 2 conditions. So obviously it's going to print, right? And the way you should know how this works is that if it goes, basically the first condition that it's met, that's what it goes by. So if it were like, let's say we did num2 equals num1, right? And we had it this way, right? We did like this. Obviously, both of these statements are true. So which one is the condition that triggers the println statement? It's the first condition that you place in it, right? So just be aware of that. Now, if you want to use the AND operator, you use 2 ampersands. So instead of 2 vertical bars, you can use 2 ampersands. And that will mean you need to fulfill both conditions, right? So we need both conditions in here. We have is num1 not equal to num3, and is num2 not equal to num3. So obviously both num1 and num2 are equal to 5, num3 is equal to 7. So obviously num3 is different from the two numbers. So obviously this condition is going to be true, right? And therefore this statement is going to be printed. So we can see it right here. And then for our last one, this just shows that you can chain multiple conditions on top of each other. So I used an OR operator for the example, but you can use AND operators. You can even mix and match, and you can chain operators like this, and you can set in which order they do it in. So if you want like the condition to do it in certain sections, you can put parentheses around them, and you can group these operators so it'll compare what's inside the parentheses, take that result and compare it with what's outside the parentheses, and you can chain it together in that way so that you can guarantee more accurate results in the way you want it to work. So these things are really important to keep track of if you want to do more complex conditionals. Alright, so this is end of part 1. So in the next part, we're going to go over how to manipulate strings and like all the little methods or functions that the string class has that you can use. So in the next video, we'll go over those string functions, and then in part 3 we're going to go over how to get user input using the scanner class. So I'll see you then.